Hello everyone. Today I want to show you how to make focaccia bread. And the reason why I love this bread is because it's so easy to make. If you want to learn how to bake bread, then this bread you need to learn how to do first, trust me. And this I just grabbed straight out of the restaurant, so from Grano restaurant, and we're gonna use this recipe, and that's the recipe I'm gonna share with you today. When I first started making focaccia bread, it seemed overcomplicated, but today I promise you, I'm gonna show you how to make the easiest, simple focaccia bread that comes out perfect every single time. It's so easy to make, it just takes a little time in the fridge. With this recipe today, we figured out how to get the maximum flavor in the least amount of time. And there's recipes out there that you can make focaccia in one day. I just feel like the cold fermentation really helps develop the flavor and texture and bubbles in focaccia bread. And so today, I'm gonna show you how to make that. I like to make focaccia with a sourdough starter or a levain, but in order to get consistent results and an easier process, we're actually gonna make what's called a Poolish today. And Poolish is traditionally made with commercial yeast. The levain is made with wild yeast. And what the Poolish does is it really adds flavor to your focaccia dough to make it super nice and flavorful. Now we're gonna jump into making our Poolish. Start with 516 grams of water, 516 grams of flour, 1 gram of commercial dry active yeast. Clean hands, and we're just gonna mix this up. And the reason why I'm making this Poolish in this big container is because, you know, when I'm at the house, I don't really like washing too many dishes. So we'll make our Poolish in here, and then we will also make our final dough in this container. So the Poolish is supposed to look like, kind of like a thick pancake batter, right? And what you wanna do is you just wanna make sure you incorporate everything and there's no dry spots in the dough. The Poolish is done, and if you wanna make dough the same day, you can let this double in size at room temp or around 82 degrees Fahrenheit. But for what I like to do to make my life easier is I like to take it the second day. So I'll take it just like this and I'll put it in the fridge for 24 hours. Now, you can shortcut this recipe, but the minimum it's gonna take is 2 days. Through the magic of YouTube, we have a Poolish that's ready that's been fermenting for 24 hours. And if you look at it, it's super nice, all combined, and it's been fermenting. You see bubbles in there, it smells delicious. And now we're gonna make our final dough. Now, when making the final dough, you have two options. You can use a mixer, but because I wanna make sure that I'm showing the easiest way possible, I wanna show you how to mix it by hand. It's super easy, let's get into it. First, we're gonna add 1,345 grams of water to our Poolish and get that incorporated. It's like freezing. Another way you can speed up this process is, to really get the yeast jumping is you can actually use warmer room temperature water. So, around 90 to 95 degrees. It really depends. There's a lot of ways you can shortcut in making focaccia, but I think, in all honesty, starting off with the water room temp, incorporating everything in, giving that yeast time to develop the dough is like super important. You just get maximum flavor. So now that our water and our Poolish are mixed together, we're gonna add our bread flour, and we're gonna add 1,725 grams of bread flour to our mixture. This is where the party starts. So what I'm gonna do here is start mixing a little bit, and then I should have added the yeast to the water, but I just realized, so now I'm gonna add it. Oh, my pastry chef friends are gonna be mad at me. And that was 14 grams of yeast. Yeah. This will be your workout for the day. The gluten's fighting me, so this is when I'm wishing that I used a mixer. And also at this time, you can also sub out some of the bread flour if you wanna use whole wheat flour. If you wanna use spelt or rye, you could sub out a percentage. And so usually, we're making a simple focaccia recipe today with bread flour, but just so you know, you can always add or subtract different types of flour. I would just keep 60% or more, a little bit more than half, 100% bread flour. And then in order to get the dough off your hands, I just use a little bit of water. Clean your hands off. So now we're gonna let this auto-lease for about 30 minutes. And auto-lease is just letting the gluten relax and marry with the water. So that way it's a little bit more elastic so we can then mix in the salt. While our dough is in the auto-lease stage, what I like to do is I like to take the salt and just a little bit of water, and we're gonna pour it in there and mix it around. And that way it incorporates a lot easier into the dough. A lot of my professional baker friends would say, hey, you're gonna mess up the hydration with adding water. In all honesty, since this is a really high hydration dough, it's not gonna hurt anything. So now we have our auto-lease dough, and basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna incorporate the salt now, and this is where you get your hands dirty again. So make sure you have clean hands, okay? All right, salt water goes in, and then just get in there. The reason why you let it relax is because you see how much easier it is to work with. whereas before it was just a scraggly mess. So you really want to let the dough relax. I think focaccia is one of my favorite recipes. Everybody loves this bread. It's like so easy to make, but yet so rewarding, you know? And it's like, I know like deep down as a chef, sourdough levain is my favorite to use, but I'll tell you what, for consistency, using commercial yeast and letting the Poolish do its job, you get pretty dang close. One of my good friends, Sourdough Duffy, has a really good sourdough focaccia recipe. Actually, he has multiple focaccia dough recipes. You should go check him out on his page. This is where I got my inspiration from. It's where I was able to scale it up for the restaurant, also make it consistent. Because one of the things people don't realize as a chef, you know, us chefs, we're not always preparing the food. So we have to make recipes that are easily scalable and also consistent. Now we're finished with our final dough. And what you want to do is you want to let this bulk ferment at room temp or anywhere from 77 to 80 degrees for about 4 to 6 hours. And you want to do stretch and folds every 30 to 45 minutes for that duration of time. So we're gonna let this bulk ferment and then we'll talk about stretch and folds. It's been about 30 minutes and we're gonna do our first stretch and fold. At this point, get a little bit of olive oil on your hands. Just a little bit. And then what we're doing here is we are not only dividing the temperature inside the dough, so meaning we're taking the outside and incorporating it with the inside to make sure the dough is all the same temp, but we're also making sure we develop as much gluten as possible with this process. So stretch, turn, woo. Stretch, turn, stretch, turn. You can do your stretch and folds inside the Lexan, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it out and show you how to do it on the counter to give you a better look at the technique. Start with a little bit of oil on your surface, pull your dough out. And so we're gonna do about 8 turns, and this is actually called a slap and fold. And basically what we're doing here is we are making sure that we're developing as much gluten as possible, and also that the dough becomes all the same temperature. Because as it starts to proof, it's gonna be a little hotter on the outside and the inside is gonna be cold. So what I'm doing is I'm just reshaping it here real quick, and then we go back into our container for another 30 to 45 minutes. We're gonna stretch and fold 3 more times every 30 to 45 minutes. And then once we're finished with our 4 stretch and folds, we're gonna let it proof in the same container overnight for 12 to 24 hours. Back in the bathroom. Take your back to the bathroom. Day 3. Now our final dough is ready. It's been in the fridge overnight. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get the dough into this pan. Trust me when I tell you, olive oil in the bottom. Massage it around. We really wanna create a non-stick environment. What's really important is you don't wanna go here wrecking these bubbles. You wanna try to keep the dough as whole as possible as you're going into this pan. Really nice and gentle. We're gonna pour this dough out. Try to keep as much of this air as possible. Oh yeah. This is gonna be real good, Matt. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little oil on this side. And then we're gonna make a nice big flip over. There we go. And then, one of my favorite parts, the dimpling begins. Trust me, I've learned by mistake, you really want to get oil on the bottom side and the top side because the more olive oil, the better. Now, you could also substitute beef tallow, duck fat, clarified butter. But for me, for this recipe, we're using olive oil. We're also gonna use garlic, confit garlic and rosemary, which are my favorite combinations for focaccia bread. If you see any bubbles like this, just go ahead and pop them. They're just really gonna burn. You wanna keep ones like this, but the really big ones, forget about it. Beautiful. For the first part of the bulk ferment on the final day, I like to take another half sheet pan, put it right on top, so that way skin doesn't develop on top of the dough. And now we're gonna let this double in size, room temp. Usually for focaccia, I like to use a Lloyd pan, which is basically has a higher edge, but half sheet pans are in everybody's kitchen. readily available. And so basically what I want to do here is make a little security barrier so that way the focaccia doesn't spill over. To make the security wall, what you want to do is take a sheet of aluminum foil, fold it on itself probably about 3 or 4 times, and that way it has some structure. And then we are going to put it in between the dough and the half sheet pan. I'm actually going to fold this one more time. Improvising. So in order to make this successful, just pull the dough back just a little bit, slam this down in between the dough and the pan. Beautiful, look at that. Over here. Be gentle. These two pieces together. These pieces together. So of course the dough is gonna rise in the oven, and so the security layer just helps make sure it doesn't fall over the pan and get all over the oven, and then you have to clean up that mess. So our next step, we're just gonna do another set of dimpling, and we're also gonna add our toppings at this point. Oh yeah, chef, this is the easiest focaccia ever. So I'm going in with a little fresh cut rosemary. And you know, obviously you can substitute any herbs you want. I would just recommend to do hardy herbs, and I wouldn't do flat leaf herbs because they'll just burn in the oven. Next step, this is actually confit garlic, which is basically we just take olive oil and we cook it until it's super tender. And we're gonna put this right on top. If you could smell this right now, it's heaven. Okay, so I wanna make sure the garlic is spread out nice and even. And then, super important, nice and gentle, we're going to dimple. And what I'm doing is I'm just ever so gently pushing my fingers in the dough. We're gonna go one more round. So I'm just looking for spots that I missed. Really pushing the center out to the edges. Beautiful. Our focaccia is dang near ready, but just be a little bit more patient. You're absolutely welcome to bake at this point once it's doubled in size and you see a bunch of activity. But what I like to do is really make sure it comes back to room temperature. In order to do that, just let it sit on your counter just like this for about 45 minutes to an hour until it looks like it's almost overproofed. And the way you tell is when you stick your finger in the actual dough, it doesn't bounce back, it just sinks right in. Now that our dough is ready to bake, we're gonna bake this in a convection oven at 475, high fan, for about 18 to 22 minutes. But disclaimer, I'm using a professional kitchen oven. All ovens are not created equal. So if you do not have a convection fan in your oven, you're gonna go a higher temp. I would recommend is max power, 500 degrees plus. And what you wanna do is start it off high and then turn it down to about 425 for the duration of the cook. And then do yourself a favor, grab a thermometer, and what you wanna do is temp the dough. You want it to come to about 185 to 190 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's when you know it's complete. Right before you throw the focaccia in the oven, you wanna hit it with some sea salt right on top. Ooh. Finally, our focaccia is done. And what you want to do is you want to pull it out of the oven and immediately take it out of the pan because you don't want it to steam. You want to put it on a cooling rack and let it cool for about 30 to 45 minutes before you cut it open. Oh yeah. All right, now let's cut it into slices and give it a try. Nothing beats fresh focaccia. Beautiful. So good. Beautifully tender, seasoned, salt is good, baked just right. I really think you need to start it high, then drop the temperature down a little bit. Texture of the crumb is excellent. So good. This is one of my all-time favorite breads. First video in the bag. As you know, we are in our new Ember event space, and we're gonna be filming a ton of content here. So if you wanna see us create something, leave it down in the comments below. We're really excited to make this space come alive. It's a little plain right now, but don't worry. We're gonna be pumping out the best content on the interwebs from this little space over here. So Give us a shout down below. If you're here from Instagram or TikTok, man, we appreciate you. We love you, and we can't wait to cook for you.